So today in this class we are going to study about the two important policy the British that have introduced in order to expand their power in India. That is about the subsidiary alliance and the doctrine of lapse. Okay, so these are the two important policy the British introduced in order to expand their power. Actually, the expansion of the British Empire took place in a speed, that means in a longer pace, after the arrival of the Lord Wellesley. That is, Lord Wellesley is the Governor General of India. Okay, so when he had come to India, it was during 1798. The Marathas and the Mysore power had already declined. That means they had become weak, and this situation enabled the British to expand their power very easily. Okay, so Lord Wellesley, okay, he introduced this subsidiary alliance. Okay, Lord Wellesley introduced this subsidiary alliance in the year 1798. Okay, this is an important legislation. That is, it is an important policy introduced by him in order to bring more and more Indian territories under the control of the British. Okay, and this was basically a military protection agreement. Okay, this is a military protection agreement that was signed between East India Company and the Indian rulers. Okay, so subsidiary alliance introduced by Lord Wellesley in the year 1798. Okay, it's a military protection agreement between East India Company and the Indian rulers. Okay, so there is a certain condition. That means the rulers who have signed this agreement have to go with the conditions. That is, firstly, the Indian rulers, that is, Lord Wellesley encouraged the Indian rulers to sign this agreement. Okay, and the rulers who sign this agreement, they will get the military assistance. That means the military help from the British. How do they get how do the Britishers help the Indians? It says that the Britishers would help the Indians, that is, they help the Indian rulers to protect from their enemies. That means the Britishers have assured the Indian rulers that they will assist, that means they will provide the military help if any neighboring rulers attack them. Okay, so that is the first condition. The rulers who have signed this agreement, the Britishers have assured the Indian rulers that they will get the military assistance if the Indian rulers were occupied, that means were attacked by anyone. Okay, and secondly, the Indian rulers who have signed this agreement, they have to keep the British contingent, that means the British army in their territory. That means the rulers have to keep the British army in their territory, and these Indian rulers, they have to meet all the expenses. That is, they have to meet the expenses of the army. Okay, and also they have to pay the salary of the soldiers. The Indians who have kept the British force in their territory, so these Indian rulers who have agreed to keep, they have to meet all the expenses of the army, and they have to pay the salary of the soldiers. Okay, and also sometimes they have to give certain revenue land also as a gift to this British army. Okay, and these Indian rulers, they have to pay the salary in the form of a cash, or either they have to transfer certain territories to the company. Okay, and the Hyderabad state was the first state to come under this agreement. Okay, later Awadh, Gwalior, Pune, Mysore and Tanjore entered this agreement. Okay, further it states that each state has to maintain the British residence and his staff in their capital. That is, the Indian rulers have to keep the British office also in their capital, and they have to pay the salaries and meet their expenditure. Okay, and the Indian rulers have to appoint the British officers only. The king are not given any right, or they are not given any permission to appoint any other European officers without the permission of the British. Okay, and further it is said that the rulers who have signed this agreement, they should not have to enter any agreement, it means any trade relationship with any other European countries. And even these rulers should not have to sign any pact or an agreement with any other Indian rulers also. And if they have to do, they have to seek the permission of the Governor General of India. Okay, so all these are the condition. Firstly, they have to keep the British force in the territory, they have to pay their salary, and they have to meet the expenses of the army, and they have to pay the cash in the form of, that means they have to pay the salary in the form of cash, and they have to keep the British residence and office, and they have to meet the expenses, salary, everything they have to pay. And even the rulers are not supposed to have to come and to enter any agreement with the, that is trade commerce with the European rulers, and they are not supposed to enter with any trade with any Indian rulers too. If they have to sign any treaty, they have to seek the permission of the Governor General of India. So these are the conditions. In return for all these things, the Britishers, they have assured, that means they have agreed to maintain the peace and security in the Indian state. So in return for all these military services, the company offered protection to the Indian states by internal and external enemies. Okay. So now we'll see the result of the subsidiary alliance. Okay, due to the subsidiary alliance, the strength of the Indian army was reduced. That means they have to completely depend on the British army now. Okay, and secondly, the East India Company could increase the strength, that is their military strength, at the expense of the Indian states. Okay, as I told, the British contingent was stationed in the Indian territory, and they had to meet their expenses and all those things. So what happened? The strength, the military strength of the East India Company could increase. Okay, and thirdly, this East India Company could control over the subordinate states. That means the states who have entered into this policy, that is Tanjore, Pune, Mysore, all the states have entered into this agreement, right? So now the East India Company could control over these subordinate states. And similarly, I had told that the British office was there in the Indian kingdom. Okay, so now the disputes, if any dispute between any states or between any of them, these disputes now were in the hand of the British officers, it is Governor and the Governor General. They got the right to solve these disputes. Okay, so they began to interfere in the administration of the Indian rulers. Okay, and next the British officers, they got a princely state. It means they enjoy the princely states. They got a very good salary, the pension, they got the land, and they got the other benefits at the concessional rate. Okay, so similarly, you could see that the Indian rulers who lost their control, the rulers who had a very good relation with the neighboring rulers, due to this British interference in their administration, and as per their restriction that they should not enter into any Indian rulers without their permission, what happened? The Indian rulers lost their control over the army, they lost their control over the relationship with the neighbors. Okay, and further, administration weakened due to the interference of the British Governor General. And even the people could not meet their rulers in order to share their problem and get the relief from the government. And similarly, the treasury of the Indian rulers, that is, as they have to pay the subsidy, that is the money to the Britishers, it says that 50% of the revenue, that is whatever the benefit, whatever the money the Indian rulers they had, 50% had to be paid to the Britishers in the princely state. Okay, so 50% of their income went to the British. Okay, so this had made the Indian rulers economically weak. So many states which failed to meet the expenses of the British force in India, who failed to pay the subsidy to the British rulers in India, they were forced to submit, they were forced to surrender their territory to the British. As a result of this policy, the states like Tanjore, Mysore, Gwalior, Pune, some of these states were surrendered to the British. Okay, most of the Indian states now came into the control of the British. So as a result of this policy, that is subsidiary alliance, the British territories in India expanded enormously. So now we'll know about the next important policy of the British that introduced in India, that was doctrine of lapse. Okay. Governor General Lord Dalhousie introduced this policy in India. So this is also one of the important policy British introduced in order to expand their power in India. Okay. So the share of the Lord Dalhousie in the expansion of the British Empire in India was also indeed notable. And he was determined to extend the British rule as large as areas as possible. Okay. And during his governorship, it is said that he annexed around 2.5 lakh square miles to the British Empire in India. Okay. So now let us know about what is this doctrine of lapse. According to this policy, which was introduced by Lord Dalhousie, it states that if any Indian ruler die without a natural heir, that if they do not have the male heir, son for the next succession, such territory would lapse to the British. Understood, all of you? If Indian ruler, you know that after the ruler die, his son will succeed the throne. Okay, if any Indian rulers, if they die without a male child for the throne, such territory, that means if they have any adopted children, the adopted children have no legal right over the throne, and such territory would lapse. That means such territory will be taken away by the British. I think you all understood. If any Indian rulers die without a male heir to the throne, their adopted children do not have a right to own the throne, and such territory will be taken away but will lapse to the British. As a result of this policy, many Indian rulers, that is the rulers of Satara, Jhansi, Nagpur, Udaipur, Sambalpur, all these territories were lapsed to the British. It means these rulers had adopted children. They did not have the male heir to the throne. So such territories were lapsed to the British. So like this, the Britishers who came to India for the trade, for the purpose of the trade, due to their expansion policy, they expanded their power. That means they expanded their territory in India, and they did all this in order to establish their mighty power in India and also to collect the revenue. So this made, that means this policy of the British made India, that means made the Britishers very unpopular in India, and the rulers who had lost, that means you could see the subsidiary alliance, many rulers lost their territory, and even in the doctrine of lapse, many rulers have lost their territories. Okay, so these rulers, they became the bitter enemies of the British, and this became one of the reason for the 1857 revolt, which you are going to learn in the next class.